songs about Bellingham, so.
Yeah, don't take it too seriously. Anyone want to dance? Anyone? You're all sitting down. Claire wants to dance. Liam, where's Liam?
Don't be shy.
Don't let
debt for the first time. You know it's gonna last. It's a debt that lasts forever. Not really. It's a debt that has no past. Don't let me down. Don't let me down. Don't let me down. Don't let me I'm sure you won't disappoint us. We're already proud you didn't let us down. You're here today. Don't let me down. Don't let me down. Don't let me down. Don't let me Sail the shore away, the anchor down. I'm tired, your eyes shine rest now. My journey's been long, yes, your tales are true. I am Ulysses of joy, journey's not yet through. They're hiding.
road, they hired us for 3 songs. We gotta go get jobs. Congratulations! Thanks for having us.
Let's give one more round of applause to Colin, Schmidt, his band, Jim Jackson, and Dennis. Now, it is my honor to introduce this year's keynote speaker, Teizeen Mohamedali. Teizeen works as an environmental engineer for the Washington State Department of Ecology, where she works on scientific studies, data analysis, and computer modeling of water bodies and watersheds to understand and improve water quality for people and aquatic organisms. She enjoys translating complex scientific information into creative ways to communicate with the public. She's a Huxley alum who graduated with a BS in environmental science in 2006 and then went on to pursue a master's degree in environmental engineering from Stanford University. She has traveled to over 20 countries during her childhood, but is now proud to call Bellingham home. She lives here with her husband and 2 young daughters of 3 and 6, that's their age, who are with us today. She likes to spend her free time exploring the outdoors with her family, hiking on our local trails, backpacking, traveling, reading, improving her nominal skiing skills, encouraging young girls to pursue STEM careers, and participating in interfaith activities. Please welcome back to Huxley, Teizeen Mohamedali.
I asked T for a stool, but I think he forgot. So hopefully you can see me. Good afternoon, graduates, family members, mentors, and Huxley faculty and staff. Today, we get to celebrate Huxley's graduating class of 2019. Wow. Congratulations, graduates. We are here to recognize the culmination of your time here, your years of hard work, scholarship, research, and academic pursuits. I was sitting in one of your chairs 13 years ago when I graduated from Huxley with my bachelor's in environmental science. And while I had a number of dreamy thoughts and ideas in my head at the time, I honestly never envisioned that I would be standing here delivering the keynote speech to a new cohort of Huxley graduates. I was floored when I received the invitation to be today's keynote speaker, and I want to start by thanking Dean Hollenhurst and the rest of the Huxley graduation planning team for entrusting me with this honor. To the parents, grandparents, siblings, other family members, and mentors in the room, I am sure you are proud of your graduate, but I also want you to take a moment to recognize the role you played in their journey, whether you provided moral support, financial support, or simply gave these graduates the freedom to discover their passion or the motivation to pursue them. Thank you. Graduation is also a time to recognize Huxley's phenomenal faculty and staff that continue to inspire and educate a new cohort of environmental stewards. Huxley's vision is to train students for creative, fulfilling careers in a changing world and to prepare them to be interdisciplinary problem solvers. This vision statement, however, does not include what I think Huxley faculty do best. They bring their passion and enthusiasm with them to class, and through the law of osmosis, they inspire the students they're tasked to train. Before I share a little bit about my journey and offer some words of advice, I would like to share a few anecdotes about specific faculty members that I crossed paths with during my time at Huxley. First, David Shull. He brought his larger-than-life enthusiasm into the classroom every day, and I'm still not convinced that his abundant energy follows the laws of energy conservation. Michael Medler would brighten up the dark, dank spatial analysis lab located in the basement of Arntzen Hall by inserting candid and humorous stories into his lectures, often impersonating different characters. Peter Homan, now retired, he had a calm and compassionate demeanor, and I'm not sure if anyone else could deliver lectures about biogeochemistry and nutrient cycling with such elegance. John Ribzik, I remember spending several evenings artistically arranging dried wetland plants for his scientific art show as part of his wetland ecology lab. Once I consulted him on a dilemma. I really wanted to take his wetlands for wastewater treatment class, but it was at the same time as a GIS course I was considering. He said, Teizeen, do you know what GIS stands for? Guaranteed Income Source. And he was right. My GIS skills definitely helped me get my first job. Last but not least, Ruth Sofield. It was in one of her classes that I realized how beautifully math and environmental science could intersect, which got me on my path to pursue a master's degree and career in environmental engineering. I was not officially aware of environmental careers until after I started at Western, but my journey into the field began long before I was aware of it. I spent my childhood in Africa. Born in Kenya, I lived in Botswana and Egypt for several years and visited surrounding countries. My family spent countless weekends jumping waves and combing the white sandy beaches of the Kenyan coast. We camped in the breathtaking Okavango River Delta in Botswana, hiked in the Drakensberg Mountains of South Africa, and witnessed Victoria Falls in Zimbabwe. My most memorable New Year's Eve is still the one we spent camping in the remote desert sand dunes of Egypt, watching the night sky light up with more stars than I'd ever seen in my life as the clock ticked in the new year. So before the word ecosystem was even in my vocabulary, I had this awe of the natural world, an appreciation of how ecosystems sustained life in varied climates and geographies, how plants, animals, and people adapted to different surroundings. When I took my first ecology class at Huxley, things clicked in my brain beautifully. The interdisciplinary nature of the environmental science field provided me with the perfect blend of multiple science subjects. Later, my master's degree in environmental engineering allowed me to infuse physics and math into how we approach and solve today's environmental problems. I now work as an environmental engineer for the Washington State Department of Ecology. Most of my day-to-day work involves data analysis and using computer models to simulate water movement and water quality processes in water bodies and watersheds to calculate how much of which pollutants need to be reduced to meet the state's water quality standards. Over the last 10 years, one of the biggest projects I've worked on with an amazing team of scientists and engineers is the Salish Sea model, which is a computational tool that simulates circulation, temperature, oxygen levels, nutrient and acidification processes in the Salish Sea. After years of development and continuing refinement, we are now applying the model to assess what nutrient load reductions we might need in this region to improve oxygen levels in Puget Sound. The work that I do provides me with intellectual satisfaction. I'm always learning new things and I'm rarely bored. But what makes my work even more fulfilling is the people I work with. People who are dedicated in both their personal and professional lives to the agency's mission, which is to protect, preserve, and enhance Washington's land, air, and water for current and future generations. I think all of you in this room today share a similar vision, not just for Washington State, but for the planet at large. So with that, I would like to share 5 pieces of advice that I hope will help you along your journey today. One of my first pieces of advice to you is put yourself in situations and places where you are surrounded by a different dominant narrative, one that is different from the culture you grew up in, the language you speak, your view of the world, your value system. Challenge yourself to be in places where you're surrounded by people who do not look like you, act like you, or believe what you believe. My family is ethnically Indian and we are also Muslim, but my childhood provided me with experiences where I was exposed to other cultures, religions, languages, traditions, lifestyles, and values. My peers at the international schools I attended were from all corners of the world. I had friends and classmates who were African, South Asian, Arab, and European. I participated in the celebrations and festivities of my African, Hindu, and Christian friends. When I was living this childhood, nothing about it seemed extraordinary. But later, I began to appreciate how these experiences helped me develop a deep level of tolerance, an unruffled attitude towards people or ideas that I disagree with, and the wisdom to reserve judgment. However, I, like all of us here today, am definitely not free of bias, and I'm learning more about it through a different lens now that I live in the US. My family immigrated to the US to Yakima, Washington when I was 16. I was so excited to be moving to the big, vast land of the free, attend an American high school, make new friends, and finally wear overalls. Seriously, in my mind, overalls were a quintessential part of American childhood, and I had missed out. However, I was unprepared for the immense culture shock, discomfort, and loneliness that came from moving here, especially during my only year of high school. Despite all the friendly and well-intentioned invitations I received from my peers, I felt an intense nostalgia for the community I'd left behind and longed to return to what was familiar. I had moved from a city where I was part of a significant minority to a city where I could count the number of South Asian families on my two hands. I'd moved from a culture of frugality to a culture of abundance, from a culture that thrived on communal efforts and interdependence to a culture that valued individual independence above all. In my culture, food and eating are a communal activity, an almost sacred act. My grandmother would scold me for eating or even drinking while standing. The act of eating itself was supposed to be executed with respect. So I knew I was at a pretty low point when during lunch recess in high school, I was so uncomfortable with the idea of being seen eating alone that I would take my lunch, go into a stall in the women's bathroom, and quickly scarf it down. I felt like there was a dichotomy between who I was in my surroundings, and I did not know how to regain my sense of belonging in a place that felt so foreign. The plus side to that discomfort was that over time it forced me to assess the parts of my identity I was proud of. It made me realize I did not have to fully conform with the culture and narrative that surrounded me in order to appreciate where I was, build relationships, and take advantage of the opportunities that awaited me. Slowly, I found a way of remaining authentic and true to myself, while also finding a way of belonging. So to come back to my first piece of advice, let yourself be uncomfortable. And while you sit in that discomfort, observe, listen, reserve judgment, and trust that your discomfort will contribute to your personal growth and help you develop tolerance and compassion without having to compromise the things you care most about. My second piece of advice is recognize your privilege and practice humility. If the world was compressed to a village of 100 people based on 2016 demographics, only 7 of those people would have a college degree. Just think about that for a second. All of you graduates with a college degree represent a very, very small slice of the world population in terms of the opportunity of higher education that you have had. When I was a student, I felt so lucky. I remember biking home from campus at 3 a.m. one day. I was exhausted from working so late on a group project, but I felt this rush of gratitude. Gratitude for the opportunity to work on something I was excited about, for being able to bike home safely at 3 a.m., having access to a computer and internet whenever I needed it, not having the water or power shut off due to rationing, which was common in Kenya, having endless choices about what to eat, which classes to take, where to live, how to spend my free time, and so on. My parents had sacrificed a lot for me to be here, so rather than a sense of entitlement, I felt a great sense of responsibility. Moving here allowed me to attend university, provided me with more autonomy, independence, opportunities, and agency over my future. So, recognize your privilege and practice humility regardless of your accomplishments. My third piece of advice is build your own awareness and educate yourself. While working on issues that get us closer to clean air, clean water, clean soils, and resilient ecosystems to support Earth's various life forms is intrinsically ethical, we still have a lot of work to do in how we practice and implement our environmental work. More specifically, we need to reckon with the environmental movement's racist and exclusionary past and its continued lack of inclusivity today. If you appreciate our national parks and the recreational opportunities they provide, learn about the origins of the conservation and preservation movement, a mostly white and male-led movement, which, while preserving spaces free of people, also displaced native inhabitants out of the very places in which their identities were rooted. When modern sewage infrastructure was developed, the waste still had to go somewhere, and often it was diverted to poor and minority neighborhoods. In 1972, Sierra Club members were polled about whether the club should concern itself with the conservation problems of the urban poor and ethnic minorities. Only 15% of respondents were supportive and 40% were strongly opposed. More recently, a 2014 study examined why diversity in the mainstream environmental movement is lacking, and they concluded that there is an overwhelmingly white Green Insiders Club in environmental organizations due to unconscious bias, discrimination, and insular recruiting. The environmental movement has largely failed to engage in issues of social, economic, and racial inequities, and has focused more on preserving wilderness and wildlife for the privileged few to access and enjoy. The discourse in the airwaves is slowly changing today with issues that have made national headlines, from the water crisis in Flint, Michigan that predominantly affected poor and black neighborhoods, to the indigenous environmental activists at Standing Rock who brought the Dakota Access Pipeline protest into the national spotlight. The environmental field is ripe with environmental justice-related issues. We need to approach these issues by asking ourselves questions like these. Is the toxic exposure I'm studying disproportionately affecting communities of color? Am I being aware and culturally sensitive to the environmental legacy of Native Americans? How will low-income families juggling more than one job make it to my public comment meeting? Do I have significant non-English speakers in my stakeholder group who may need translation services? Will my fancy new environmental solution equally benefit marginalized groups? Addressing these types of questions will help you become an environmental justice advocate within the organizations you end up working for. Along with that, I want to commend Huxley for their freshly minted environmental justice minor and for adopting a diversity initiative in 2015. We need to continue to prioritize, support, and sustain initiatives that increase participation of underrepresented groups in environmental careers. This will bring unique perspectives and diverse voices towards building not just environmental change, but equitable, inclusive, and transformative environmental change. My fourth piece of advice is continue learning with determination and embrace failure. If there is anything I can guarantee, it is this: your pursuit of education and knowledge does not end today. By learning new skills and expanding your knowledge, will take even more self-initiation outside the structured walls of a university campus. Since I graduated, I've had to learn how to use new modeling tools and programming languages, how to work on large interdisciplinary teams that don't always agree, and how to confidently communicate your work with a spectrum of stakeholders. Mastering any skill requires repeated attempts, and not all your attempts are going to be successful. As a parent of 2 young girls, I have observed how babies and toddlers are not thwarted by repeated failure. They try things countless times before they figure it out. But by the time a child is 5 or 6 years old, societal expectations are already influencing their idea of success and contributing to their discomfort around failure. They get worried about not doing it the right way, and my response to that is to change what we label as successful. If you tried something 5 different ways and it didn't work, you didn't fail. You actually succeeded in eliminating 5 unsuccessful ideas. So do not let fear of failure stop you from learning or trying new things, but rather embrace it as a prerequisite to success. My fifth and last piece of advice is collaborate with others. An essential part of learning is collaboration. The environmental field is ripe with interdisciplinary topics, and there is no way you can be an expert on all aspects of an environmental issue, even if you want to be. So when you find yourself tackling a new issue or problem, seek the experts, those who have worked on similar problems or have studied it for years. In turn, once you have mastered a useful skill, be available as a resource to others. The most successful outcomes occur when we build upon each other's work. And when it comes to the work we do for our planet, trust that sharing your work is a small price to pay for the space that you occupy on this earth. So to recap, my 5 pieces of advice. 1, put yourself in uncomfortable settings and let that experience contribute to your personal growth. 2, recognize your privilege and practice humility regardless of your accomplishments. 3, educate yourself about environmental justice issues and find a way to weave it into your work. 4, keep learning and embrace failure as a necessary prerequisite to success. 5, rely on experts, collaborate, and share what you learn. Finally, I have some concluding thoughts about my hope for you and your future. At a time when science-based decision-making is no longer the norm amongst those with the highest political power, I hope that you find courage to maintain your scientific integrity, to always question your own hypothesis, and openly and freely share what you discover. At a time when we have factions in society that are so polarized, I hope that you're able to remain passionate and compassionate. Uphold your ethics, stay true to yourself, speak out when you see injustice, And as I heard someone recently say, elevate the voices of those who are not voiceless, but who remain unheard. At a time when we have a whole host of looming environmental threats, I hope that you continue to find hope. Hope in yourself, hope in others, hope in innovation, hope in the power of activism, hope in the cumulative effect of small but bold actions, and hope in the ability to affect change. And lastly, to close, I would like to offer you these wise words from the Talmud, one of the central texts of Judaism. Do not be daunted by the enormity of the world's grief. Do justly now. Love mercy now. Walk humbly now. You are not obligated to complete the work, but neither are you free to abandon. Thank you.